30 men in black clothing surround the pristine gates of Westfield Academy. Their presence transforms the manicured campus into something that looks more like a crime scene. Brandon Mitchell stands frozen behind the glass doors of the main building, his face drained of all color as he watches Maria Santos walk calmly through the crowd. These men part like water before her, each one nodding with a respect that makes Brandon's stomach drop. The same quiet girl whose skirt he yanked off just 20 minutes ago now commands an army with a single phone call. Her dark eyes find his through the glass, and for the first time in his privileged life, Brandon Mitchell understands what real fear feels like. But this story doesn't begin with 30 men and a terrified rich boy. It starts 3 weeks earlier in the cafeteria of the most exclusive private school in the district, where Maria Santos sits alone at a corner table. Her navy blazer bears the Westfield Academy crest, but unlike her classmates' crisp designer uniforms, hers shows the subtle signs of careful maintenance. Thread pulled tight where seams have been reinforced. Fabric soft from countless washings. She opens her geometry textbook to page 212. Unaware that her entire world is about to change, the morning sun streams through tall windows, casting long shadows across marble floors that cost more than most people's annual salary. If you're already hooked by this story, smash that like button and hit subscribe for more incredible tales of justice and revenge. And if these stories move you as much as they move me to tell them, consider hitting the thanks button below. Your support helps me continue bringing you these powerful moments that absolutely need to be heard. Thank you so much for being part of this journey with me. Maria Santos transferred to Westfield Academy 3 months ago on a partial scholarship. Her single mother works double shifts at the hospital, while Maria maintains a 4.0 grade average. The other students whisper when they think she can't hear. Comments about scholarship kids and immigration status float through hallways like toxic perfume. But Maria keeps her head down and her grades up. She knows this education represents her family's only shot at breaking generational poverty. The cafeteria buzzes with the controlled chaos of teenage social hierarchy. Designer handbags claim territory on mahogany tables, while conversations revolve around ski trips and summer homes. Maria unwraps a peanut butter sandwich her mother packed before her 6 a.m. shift. She's learned to eat quickly and quietly, avoiding the attention that seems to follow her everywhere. Her phone rests beside her lunch tray, its cracked screensaver displaying a photo that would shock her classmates. Dozens of serious-faced men in matching black t-shirts, their arms crossed, standing behind a teenage boy who looks remarkably like Maria. The cafeteria doors swing open with dramatic force. Brandon Mitchell enters like he owns the place, which, in many ways, he does. His family's donations built the new gymnasium, funded the arts program, and ensure that his name appears on every significant school committee. At 17, Brandon already carries himself with the confidence of someone who has never faced real consequences. His Rolex catches the light as he surveys the room. 3 teammates flank him like bodyguards, their Letterman jackets pristine and their attitudes toxic. Brandon's eyes scan the cafeteria until they land on Maria. Something about her solitude irritates him in a way he can't quite articulate. Maybe it's the way she doesn't look up when he passes, or how she seems immune to the social pressure that keeps everyone else in line. Whatever it is, Brandon decides in that moment that Maria Santos needs to learn her place. He changes direction, his expensive sneakers silent on the polished floor as he approaches her table. His friends follow, sensing opportunity for entertainment. Well, Brandon says, his voice carrying across nearby tables. Conversations pause as students turn to watch the show. "If it isn't our little scholarship princess." Maria looks up slowly, her dark eyes meeting his blue ones without flinching. This unexpected boldness only fuels Brandon's irritation. He leans against her table, his weight causing her milk carton to tip. White liquid spreads across her notebook, soaking into pages of carefully written notes. "Oops," Brandon says, his smile sharp as broken glass. "How clumsy of me." And Maria stands quickly, grabbing napkins to salvage her work. But the damage is done. 3 hours of chemistry notes dissolve into illegible smears. The cafeteria watches in silence, every student calculating the social cost of intervention. In Brandon's world, loyalty is purchased with inclusion, and crossing him means exile. "You should be more careful," Maria says quietly, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Accidents happen to everyone." Something flickers in Brandon's eyes at this veiled threat, but he laughs it off. What could this scholarship girl possibly do to someone like him? His friends chuckle on cue, their laughter echoing off vaulted ceilings like hyenas circling wounded prey. The incident in the cafeteria spreads through school faster than wildfire. By third period, everyone knows that Brandon Mitchell has officially declared war on Maria Santos. Students whisper in hallways about taking sides, but most choose the safety of neutrality. Brandon's family connections reach deep into the community, affecting everything from college recommendations to parents' business deals. Maria finds herself even more isolated than before. Empty seats surround her in every classroom like a quarantine zone. During English literature, Mrs. Henderson assigns Romeo and Juliet reading partners. Maria waits as students pair off around her, leaving her sitting alone when the musical chairs of teenage politics ends. "Miss Santos," Mrs. Henderson says with forced brightness, "you can work with—" She surveys the room, finding no volunteers. "Perhaps you'd prefer to write an individual analysis paper instead." The suggestion carries the weight of social exile. Maria nods, understanding that her isolation is now official school policy. In the hallway after class, Brandon materializes beside her locker like a predator who has learned his prey's patterns. "Having trouble making friends?" he asks, his voice dripping with false concern. "Maybe if you went back where you came from, you'd fit in better." His words hit like physical blows, but Maria's face remains impassive. She's heard worse from immigration officers and landlords, though somehow Brandon's casual cruelty cuts deeper. "I belong here as much as anyone," Maria replies, her voice quiet but firm. She opens her locker to find her books scattered on the floor, pages torn and covers bent. Brandon's friends snicker behind him, clearly proud of their morning's work. The message is unmistakable. Nowhere is safe. Nothing is sacred. Maria kneels to gather her damaged books, her movements deliberate and controlled. She doesn't see Brandon raise his phone to record her humiliation, but she hears the camera click. "Perfect," Brandon murmurs, already uploading the photo to his Instagram story. Scholarship girl right where she belongs, on her knees picking up garbage. The caption he adds will go viral within hours, shared and reshared until Maria's humiliation reaches every corner of their social media ecosystem. But Maria doesn't know this yet. She simply closes her locker and walks to her next class, her damaged books clutched against her chest like armor that's already been breached. The war escalates over the following weeks with surgical precision. Brandon demonstrates the sophisticated cruelty that comes with privilege and practice. He spreads rumors about Maria's documentation status during study hall, convinces teachers that she's cheating when her grades outshine his friends, organizes social media campaigns that turn her name into a punchline. Each attack is calculated to cause maximum damage while maintaining plausible deniability. Brandon has learned from watching his father navigate political scandals. Maria's grades begin to slip as stress fractures her concentration. She finds herself looking over her shoulder constantly, never knowing when the next humiliation will strike. Her mother notices the change, but attributes it to academic pressure. Maria doesn't have the heart to explain that her scholarship might be in jeopardy because of social warfare rather than academic failure. The isolation becomes a physical weight. She moves through hallways like a ghost, avoided by students who fear guilt by association. During chemistry lab, Brandon accidentally knocks over Maria's experiment, destroying hours of careful work. The teacher, Mr. Phillips, barely looks up from his desk. "Clean it up and start over," he says dismissively, his tone suggesting that scholarship students should expect such setbacks. Maria spends her lunch period redoing the experiment while Brandon and his friends celebrate their latest victory. Their laughter echoes from the cafeteria, a soundtrack to her humiliation. The breaking point approaches with the inevitability of a gathering storm. Maria can feel the pressure building in every interaction, every whispered comment, every carefully orchestrated moment of exclusion. Her phone buzzes with notifications from anonymous accounts posting her photo with increasingly cruel captions. She deletes each one, but they multiply faster than she can manage. The digital harassment follows her home, invading the one space where she once felt safe. Her mother's worried questions become harder to deflect. Spring Festival arrives at Westfield Academy like a celebration designed specifically to showcase social hierarchies. Students in designer dresses and rented tuxedos transform the gymnasium into a glittering reminder of who belongs and who doesn't. Maria attends because attendance is mandatory for scholarship students. She wears her mother's old dress, altered to fit her smaller frame, and stands along the wall watching her classmates dance. Brandon arrives fashionably late, his date wearing a dress that costs more than Maria's mother makes in a month. They hold court near the punch bowl, surrounded by admirers who hang on every word. Brandon's eyes find Maria across the room, and something predatory flickers in his expression. He whispers something to his friends that makes them laugh, their gazes turning toward her like searchlights. Maria feels the familiar chill of impending humiliation. But tonight feels different. There's an electricity in the air that makes her skin crawl. "Ladies and gentlemen," Brandon's voice booms across the gymnasium as he commandeers the microphone from the surprised DJ. "I'd like to take a moment to thank our scholarship students for joining us tonight." His words drip with false gratitude while his eyes lock onto Maria. The crowd turns to follow his gaze, sensing drama in the making. Especially Miss Santos, who reminds us every day how grateful we should be for our advantages. Maria feels 400 pairs of eyes focus on her. Phone cameras rise like weapons, ready to capture whatever comes next. Brandon hands the microphone back to the DJ and begins walking across the dance floor. His friends follow in formation, their intentions written across their smirking faces. The crowd parts before them, creating a clear path to where Maria stands frozen against the wall. Time seems to slow as Brandon approaches, his movements predatory and deliberate. "You know what I love about our diversity initiatives," Brandon says loudly enough for everyone to hear. "They really show us the difference between class and..." He pauses dramatically, Whatever this is. His gesture encompasses Maria's carefully altered dress, her modest jewelry, her carefully styled hair. Everything about her appearance becomes a target for his cruel commentary. The gymnasium falls silent except for the whisper of phones recording. Everyone understands they're witnessing something that will be replayed and analyzed for weeks. Brandon reaches Maria's position against the wall, his friends spread out in a semicircle, trapping her between their bodies and the cold concrete. "Tell you what, Santos," Brandon says, his voice loud enough to carry across the silent gymnasium. "Let's show everyone what scholarship students really bring to our school." His hand shoots out faster than thought, grabbing the hem of Maria's dress with a swift yank. He lifts the fabric up and over her head, exposing her simple white underwear to 400 shocked witnesses. The gymnasium erupts in gasps and nervous laughter. Phones flash like lightning as students scramble to capture the moment that will define Maria Santos forever. She stands frozen in humiliation, her dress tangled around her shoulders while Brandon and his friends double over with laughter. The sound echoes off gymnasium walls like the roar of a coliseum crowd demanding blood. Teachers move too slowly, their shock delaying any intervention by the time they reach the scene. The damage is already viral. Maria fights to pull her dress down, her face burning with shame and rage. Tears threaten, but she refuses to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these people who mistake cruelty for entertainment. Brandon's laughter reaches new heights as he watches her struggle. "Now that's what I call a cultural exchange," he shouts. His friends recording every second of Maria's degradation. The moment stretches like eternity. Maria Santos disappears, replaced by a viral video that will follow her forever. But as Maria finally covers herself and pushes through the crowd toward the exit, something fundamental shifts inside her. The humiliation transforms into something harder, more dangerous. Her phone buzzes in her purse, but she doesn't need to look to know what she'll find. The video is already spreading across social media platforms like digital wildfire. Students part before her as she walks toward the gymnasium doors. Their laughter follows her into the hallway, where fluorescent lights buzz overhead like electronic wasps. Maria finds herself in the empty hallway outside the gymnasium. The sounds of continued celebration mock her through closed doors while she stands alone in the harsh light. Her phone continues buzzing with notifications. Comments and shares pile up faster than she can process, each one another nail in the coffin of her reputation. She pulls out her phone with trembling hands, scrolling through the cascade of humiliation, screenshots of her exposed body paired with cruel captions that reduce her to a punchline. The bathroom becomes her refuge. Maria locks herself in the furthest stall and finally allows the tears to fall. Each sob echoes off tile walls while she reads comment after comment. Strangers dissect her body, her clothing, her right to exist in their privileged space. Scholarship girl got what she deserved. Reads one comment with 300 likes. Send her back where she came from. Says another with twice as many. The cruelty is breathtaking in its creativity. Teenage minds finding new ways to slice her dignity into smaller and smaller pieces. Her phone rings, interrupting the cascade of digital abuse. Carlos Santos appears on the caller ID. Her older brother, who works nights as a security supervisor. Maria considers ignoring the call, but something in her needs to hear a familiar voice. She answers on the fourth ring, her voice barely steady enough to speak. "Maria," Carlos says immediately, his tone sharp with concern. "What's wrong? You sound like you've been crying." "It's nothing," Maria begins, but her voice cracks on the words. The lie dissolves before it can fully form. Carlos waits in the silence that follows, his patience carrying across phone lines like a lifeline. Maria knows he won't hang up until she tells him everything. Someone at school, she starts again. But how do you explain humiliation to someone who sacrificed everything for your education? How do you admit that the dream you shared might be crumbling? Tell me what happened, Carlos says, his voice carrying the authority of someone who handles crises professionally. All of it, Maria. Don't leave anything out. The gentleness in his tone breaks something loose inside her. The whole story pours out in broken sentences and shaky breath. She tells him about Brandon's escalating harassment, the social isolation, the failed interventions. Finally, she describes tonight's humiliation in detail that makes her voice crack with fresh tears. The silence that follows her confession stretches long enough to make Maria wonder if the call dropped. When Carlos speaks again, his voice carries a chill that makes her shiver. Maria, listen to me very carefully, he says, each word precise and deliberate. You're going to walk out of that bathroom, get in your car, and drive straight home. Don't talk to anyone. Don't stop anywhere. Just come home. Can you do that for me? Something in his tone suggests this isn't really a request. Maria finds herself nodding even though he can't see her. What are you going to do? Maria asks, though part of her already knows. She's seen Carlos make calls like this before, usually involving problems that disappear overnight. I'm going to make some calls, he says simply. People need to understand that Santos family business includes protecting Santos family honor. They picked the wrong girl to humiliate. The line goes quiet for a moment before Carlos speaks again. Maria, baby sister, they have no idea who they just declared war on. Maria drives home through empty streets, her hands gripping the steering wheel like a lifeline. The dashboard clock reads 11:37 p.m., but her mind replays the gymnasium scene in endless loops. Every red light becomes an opportunity for self-doubt. Every passing car might contain classmates who witnessed her humiliation. Her phone continues buzzing with notifications, but she's learned to ignore the digital assault. The real conversation will happen at home, where family loyalty means more than social media likes. The Santos house sits in a neighborhood that Google Maps marks as transitioning, which means working families like hers live beside empty lots and corner stores with barred windows. Maria parks in the driveway behind Carlos's black pickup truck, noting the unusual number of vehicles lining their street. Warm light spills from every window of their small house. Voices carry across the front yard, speaking rapid Spanish that sounds like a war council in session. Maria's stomach tightens as she realizes tonight's humiliation has already reached her family's inner circle. The front door opens before Maria can knock. Carlos appears in the doorway, his expression mixing brotherly concern with something harder and more dangerous. Behind him, the living room fills with men she recognizes from neighborhood barbecues and church gatherings. They wear matching black t-shirts with Los Hermanos Community Watch printed in silver letters. Her grandfather, Eduardo Santos, sits in his usual chair at the head of the room. At 72, he commands respect with nothing more than his presence and the stories everyone knows but no one discusses. Mija, Eduardo says, his voice carrying the authority of someone who once ruled these streets through respect and fear. Come sit with your family. Maria enters the room slowly, aware that every eye follows her movement. These men have daughters, sisters, wives who could face similar humiliation. Her mother appears from the kitchen carrying coffee and the concerned expression she wears during family crises. Rosa Santos works double shifts to afford Maria's education. And tonight's events threaten everything they've sacrificed to achieve. Carlos guides Maria to the couch, his protective instincts obvious in the way he positions himself between her and the door. "Tell them what happened," he says gently, though his jaw muscle twitches with controlled rage. "Everything. These men need to understand exactly what we're dealing with." Maria looks around the room at faces she's known since childhood. Neighborhood uncles and family friends who taught her to ride bikes and helped with homework now listen with the focused attention of soldiers receiving mission briefings. She begins slowly, describing months of escalating harassment, while the room grows quieter with each detail. When she reaches tonight's humiliation, several men close their hands into fists. He pulled her dress up in front of 400 people. Carlos translates for those whose English isn't perfect. Recorded it. Posted it online for the world to see. The silence that follows feels dangerous. Maria realizes she's witnessing something her mother tried to shield her from her entire life. Eduardo stands slowly, his movements carrying the weight of decisions that shaped this neighborhood for 3 decades. "In my day, we handled disrespect differently," he says. His accented English careful and precise. A man who humiliated someone's daughter would learn about consequences very quickly. No police, no lawyers, just education. He walks to an old photograph on the mantel showing dozens of young men in matching colors. Los Hermanos protected this community when no one else would. But that was then, Eduardo continues, his weathered hands clasping behind his back. Today, we use different methods. He turns to face Maria directly, his eyes holding depths she's never noticed before. Your education is important, mija, but so is your dignity. Some lessons can't be taught in classrooms. They require real-world education. Maria feels the room's energy shift as Eduardo speaks. These men aren't planning violence, but something that might be more effective. Carlos pulls out his phone, scrolling through social media feeds that document Maria's humiliation. The video has 50,000 views already, he reports, his voice tight with controlled anger. Comments from people calling her every name you can imagine. This Brandon Mitchell has turned our sister into entertainment for strangers. The room erupts in angry Spanish. Fists pound on coffee tables while voices rise in outrage that transcends language barriers. Enough, Eduardo says quietly, his single word cutting through the chaos like a blade. Instant silence follows his command. Anger without purpose is just noise. We need strategy, not emotion. He walks to Maria's chair, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Tell me about this boy's family. What makes him think he's untouchable? Maria describes the Mitchell family's wealth and connections, their donations to the school, their political influence, their ability to make problems disappear. Money and connections, Eduardo muses, nodding slowly. Tools of power, but not sources of strength. He looks around the room at faces that have seen decades of struggle. We built this community with loyalty and respect, things money can't buy. The men nod in understanding. They know stories about Eduardo's past, when Los Hermanos meant something different, but served the same protective function. Maria's mother speaks for the first time since the meeting began. What are you planning? Rosa asks, her voice carrying a mother's concern and an immigrant's fear of authority. I won't have my daughter's future destroyed because of some rich boy's cruelty. She's worked too hard to get where she is. The room acknowledges her point. They all know the stakes of challenging powerful families in a system designed to protect privilege. We're going to educate them, Eduardo says simply, about respect, about consequences, about what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. He turns to Carlos, who nods in understanding. Make the calls. Everyone we can trust, uncles, cousins, neighbors who remember what Los Hermanos really means. Carlos steps onto the front porch, his phone already dialing, through the window. Maria watches him speak in rapid Spanish to contact after contact. The next 2 hours pass in careful planning. Men discuss logistics with military precision, while Maria's mother packs food for what everyone understands will be a long night. Phone calls multiply across the neighborhood. Maria hears fragments of conversations about family honor and community protection. This isn't about gang violence or territorial disputes. It's about teaching privileged teenagers that actions have consequences even when daddy's money usually provides immunity. By 2 a.m., cars begin arriving. Maria recognizes business owners, construction workers, security guards who make this neighborhood safe through presence rather than patrol cars. They embrace Eduardo like soldiers greeting a retired general. These men remember when Los Hermanos meant survival in a city that didn't care about their families. Tonight, they're volunteering for a different kind of community service, one that involves education rather than enforcement. Maria, Eduardo calls her over as the last volunteers arrive. You don't have to be there tomorrow. Your mother can call you in sick. Let us handle this quietly. But something in Maria's expression has changed during the evening's planning. The victim who entered this house has been replaced by someone who understands her own power. No, she says firmly. I want to be there. I want to see his face when he realizes what family really means. Carlos grins at his sister's newfound confidence. That's my girl, he says proudly. But remember, we're not like them. We don't humiliate people for entertainment. Eduardo nods approvingly. We educate. We correct behavior. We ensure respect, but we don't become what we're fighting against. The distinction matters to everyone in the room. They're protecting dignity, not seeking revenge. Friday morning arrives with unusual energy at Westfield Academy. Students cluster around phones, sharing overnight developments in the Maria Santos story. The video has gone viral beyond their small community. Strangers across the internet dissect every frame while offering commentary that ranges from supportive to horrifically cruel. Brandon arrives at school like a conquering hero. His friends celebrate their viral success while planning their next humiliation campaign. Maria enters the building at exactly 8:15 a.m. Her appearance silences conversations as students try to reconcile the confident girl before them with last night's victim. She wears her school uniform with military precision, every button straight, every crease sharp, her shoulders squared like someone preparing for battle. Something fundamental has changed in her bearing. The scared scholarship girl has been replaced by someone who knows exactly who she is and what she's worth. In first period, English, Brandon makes a show of applauding when Maria enters. Ladies and gentlemen, our internet celebrity. He announces to nervous laughter from classmates who sense dangerous undercurrents. I hope you enjoyed your 15 minutes of fame, though I have to say, you looked better with less clothing. His friends erupt in laughter while Mrs. Henderson pretends not to hear. The teacher's willful blindness to harassment has become institutional policy. Maria takes her seat without responding. Her silence unnerves Brandon more than any comeback could. She opens her notebook and begins taking notes with the focus of someone who has nothing left to lose. Her calm confidence throws off Brandon's rhythm. He tries several more verbal jabs, but Maria's immunity to his attacks drains the entertainment value, gradually. His friends lose interest, and attention shifts elsewhere. During lunch, Maria sits at her usual isolated table, but today, something extraordinary happens. Jenny Walsh, a sophomore who suffered Brandon's harassment earlier this year, approaches with her lunch tray. "Mind if I sit here?" she asks, her voice carrying newfound courage. They're joined by Mike Chen, a junior who endured Brandon's racist comments until his family considered transferring schools. Then Emma Rodriguez, whose accent became Brandon's favorite target. The impromptu alliance grows throughout the day. Students who've suffered in silence find strength in numbers. They don't discuss plans or coordinate responses. They simply exist in Brandon's presence without fear. And their combined confidence unsettles his usual dynamic. By final period, Brandon's frustration reaches dangerous levels. His empire of intimidation cracks when victims refuse to remain isolated. At 3:27 p.m., exactly 24 hours after the gymnasium incident, black vehicles begin arriving at Westfield Academy. They park along the circular drive with military precision, while administrators watch nervously from office windows. 30 men in matching T-shirts emerge from cars and trucks. Their presence transforms the prestigious campus into something that looks more like a peaceful occupation than a parent pickup. Brandon stands at his locker, unaware of the gathering storm. His friends count likes on last night's video while planning weekend celebrations. The hallway gradually empties as students sense unusual energy in the building. Teachers peer through classroom doorways like residents watching approaching weather. Maria walks calmly toward the main entrance, her phone showing 17 missed calls from Carlos. She doesn't need to answer to know what's happening outside. The school's front doors open to reveal a sight that stops Brandon's heart. 30 serious-faced men in black T-shirts stand in formation across the school's entrance plaza. They don't shout or threaten. They simply exist with the quiet confidence of people who've faced real problems and survived. At their center stands Eduardo Santos, his presence commanding respect from administrators who suddenly understand they're dealing with something beyond their experience. Principal Davidson approaches the group with the nervous energy of someone trying to maintain authority in an unprecedented situation. "Gentlemen, I'm going to have to ask you to leave school property," he says, his voice carrying false confidence. Eduardo regards him calmly. "We're not here to cause problems," he replies in perfect English. "We're here to have a conversation about respect and education. I believe your student, Brandon Mitchell, needs both." Inside the building, word spreads faster than wildfire. Students crowd windows to witness the unprecedented scene, while teachers struggle to maintain classroom control. Brandon pushes through gathering crowds, desperate to understand what's happening. When he sees the men outside, his face drains of all color. "What? Who are they?" he asks no one in particular. His friends offer no answers, equally shocked by the display of organized community power. Maria appears beside Brandon in the crowded hallway. Her calm presence among his panic creates a stark contrast that nearby students notice immediately. "Those are my family," she says quietly, her voice carrying new authority. "The people who raised me to understand that actions have consequences." Brandon stares at her in disbelief. The scholarship girl he tormented has somehow summoned an army with a single phone call. "You can't do this," Brandon sputters, his privilege finally encountering resistance it can't buy or intimidate away. "My father will sue everyone, the school board, your family, everyone involved." Maria nods thoughtfully. "Your father can try," she agrees. "But first, you're going to walk outside and apologize for what you did." Not because anyone's forcing you, but because it's the right thing to do. Through the windows, students watch Eduardo approach the main entrance. Principal Davidson follows like a man walking to his own execution. The two men disappear inside the building while 30 others maintain their peaceful vigil. No one speaks. No one moves aggressively. Brandon finds himself surrounded by students who no longer fear him. His usual escape routes are blocked by crowds eager to witness his response to unprecedented challenge. Maria stands before him with quiet dignity. "You humiliated me in front of 400 people," she says clearly enough for everyone to hear. "Now, you have a choice. Apologize like a man, or explain to my grandfather why his granddaughter's dignity means nothing to you." The hallway falls silent, except for the whisper of phones recording. Everyone understands they're witnessing a moment that will define power dynamics at Westfield Academy forever. Brandon's friends back away slowly, their loyalty evaporating when faced with real consequences. Privilege provides protection only when opponents play by the same rules. And Eduardo Santos learned different rules in a much harder school. I didn't mean," Brandon begins, but his words dissolve under the weight of 400 witnesses who remember exactly what he meant. Maria waits patiently, her silence forcing him to fill the uncomfortable space with truth or continued lies. Outside, car doors close with finality. Eduardo Santos enters the building flanked by two men whose presence suggests this conversation will happen whether Brandon participates willingly or not. The principal's voice echoes from the main office. "Mr. Mitchell, please report to the main office immediately." Brandon's legs betray him, forcing him to lean against lockers for support. His usual confidence crumbles as he realizes money and connections can't solve every problem. Maria extends her hand in a gesture that shocks everyone present. "Come on," she says gently. "Let's go have that conversation about respect." The walk to the main office becomes a parade of justice. Students line hallways to watch Brandon's perp walk, while phones capture every moment of his humiliation. But unlike his treatment of Maria, this isn't entertainment. It's education about consequences and community solidarity. Maria maintains her dignity throughout, refusing to gloat over his obvious terror. She understands the difference between justice and revenge. In the main office, Eduardo Santos sits across from Principal Davidson like a grandfather, discussing his granddaughter's education. His calm demeanor makes the administrator's nervousness more obvious. "Mr. Davidson," Eduardo says politely, "my granddaughter was sexually humiliated by one of your students. A video of this assault has been viewed by thousands of strangers who now judge my family based on your school's inability to protect its students." Brandon enters the office on unsteady legs, his usual arrogance replaced by the fear of someone who's finally encountering consequences. Eduardo regards him with the measured assessment of someone who's dealt with problematic young men before. "Brandon Mitchell," he says calmly, "sit down. We need to discuss your education, clearly. Some important lessons have been overlooked." The conversation that follows will be remembered by everyone present. Eduardo speaks with the quiet authority of someone who's seen real violence and chosen better paths. He doesn't threaten or intimidate. He simply explains how community works, how respect functions, and what happens when someone mistakes tolerance for weakness. 2 weeks later, Westfield Academy implements new anti-bullying policies with enforcement mechanisms that carry real consequences. The Mitchell family's donations suddenly seem less important than avoiding community controversy. Brandon's college recruitment letters mysteriously disappear, while his social media presence becomes a liability. Scouts don't want players who generate negative publicity. Maria's status transforms completely. She becomes student advocate for harassment victims while maintaining her academic excellence. The viral video that was meant to destroy her instead becomes evidence of her strength. She receives scholarship offers from universities that value character as much as grades. The Santos family returns to their quiet neighborhood lives. Eduardo goes back to his garden and evening domino games while Carlos continues his security work. But something fundamental has changed in their community. Other families know they have allies when privilege threatens dignity. The phone tree that brought 30 men to a school that Friday afternoon remains active, not for violence, but for protection. Maria graduates as valedictorian 18 months later. Her speech about community solidarity and family honor receives standing ovations from an audience that includes former enemies. Brandon transfers to private school across the state. His new classmates know nothing about gymnasium incidents or viral videos. As Maria accepts her diploma, she notices a figure in the audience she doesn't recognize. A woman in an expensive suit taking notes and photos with professional equipment. After the ceremony, the stranger approaches with a warm smile and an extended hand. Maria Santos, I'm Rebecca Chen from the Community Justice Project. We document stories like yours for our national database. She pauses, her expression growing serious. We've been tracking similar incidents across the country, and your family's response has caught our attention. We think there might be a pattern here that needs investigating. Maria accepts the woman's business card, noting the prestigious law firm letterhead and phone numbers in multiple cities. What kind of pattern? She asks, though something in her grandfather's knowing expression suggests he already understands. Rebecca's smile doesn't reach her eyes as she responds, the kind that suggests your family's intervention might be needed again. Unfortunately, Brandon Mitchell wasn't unique, and neither was his school's protection of privileged bullies. The business card feels heavier than paper, as Maria realizes tonight's celebration might be tomorrow's call to action. Some fights end, but others are just beginning. Eduardo approaches with the slow confidence of someone who's always known this day would come. Mija, he says quietly. Sometimes the education never stops. It just moves to different classrooms. The woman nods approvingly, her recorder still running as she documents another chapter in a story that's clearly far from over.